Let's cut through the confusion. If you've ever found yourself drawn to someone who sends mixed signals, hot one minute, cold the next, there's a good chance you're dealing with a fearful avoidant. And when it comes to sex, it's not just intimacy, it's not just passion, it's a battlefield. Because for the fearful avoidant, sex is both a drug and a threat. They crave connection, but connection triggers fear. They want to be seen. But being seen feels dangerous, so here's what happens. They come in fast. They make you feel like the most desired person on earth. The sex is electric, intense, magnetic, and just when you feel emotionally close, boom, they pull away, they ghost, they shut down, and you're left spinning. Why? Because sex for them isn't just about physical closeness, it's about control, it's about testing safety, it's about battling their own terror of being known. Let's talk about the patterns, the things they don't teach you in relationships. 101. They use sex to feel close, then they use distance to feel safe. They seduce with vulnerability, then punish you for getting too close. They initiate to soothe their anxiety, then retreat because the connection feels overwhelming. It's confusing, it's painful, and here's the real kicker: it's not about you. It's about their nervous system screaming danger, even when love is standing right in front of them. So what do? You stop blaming yourself for someone else's emotional instability. You stop twisting yourself into knots to decode their mixed signals. And most of all, you stop confusing chemistry with consistency. Because love isn't proven in how intense things get. It's proven in how safe you feel afterward. So if you're stuck in this loop with someone who gives and takes in unpredictable waves, ask yourself one question: are you mistaking chaos for love? And if the answer is yes, it's time to step out of confusion and into clarity. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be honest with yourself. Fearful avoidants use sex as both a tool for closeness and a trigger for fear. And that contradiction can leave you completely emotionally disoriented. One moment, they're passionately pulling you and craving your body, your attention, your presence. The next, they're emotionally distant, suddenly cold, or completely withdrawn. To them, sex isn't just about physical pleasure. It's a way to momentarily feel safe, seen, and connected. But once that closeness is established, their nervous system starts firing warning signals. It whispers lies to them, saying, "This is too much, you're going to get hurt," or "they're going to leave." So what started as a moment of connection turns into a psychological threat. They panic, they disconnect, they may even feel ashamed of having opened up, even in such an intimate way. So they pull back. Sometimes they disappear for days, sometimes they criticize or pick fights, other times they may chase the next high, seeking sex again just to numb the fear that came from the last time. To the partner on the receiving end, this cycle feels like emotional whiplash, because the intensity of the connection during sex can be intoxicating. It feels real, it feels deep, it feels like love. But when they retreat, it feels like rejection, it feels personal, it feels like you did something wrong. But the truth is, this isn't about you. It's about a nervous system trained by past trauma to fear both abandonment and intimacy. The fearful avoidant often has a history of inconsistent caregiving, where love came with strings, pain, or unpredictability. So now, as adults, even genuine love feels unsafe. Sex becomes their paradox. It's their access point to connection, but also the door to their deepest fears. They want it, they fear it, they seek it, they sabotage it. Sometimes they'll even use sex to test you, to see if you'll stay. To feel wanted, to momentarily escape the terror of being emotionally naked. But once the emotional intimacy catches up to the physical, their instinct is to flee. They might say they're busy, they might start nitpicking. Or they'll say they just need space, and you're left wondering what changed. You're left replaying every detail, trying to figure out where you went wrong. But you didn't. You were just part of a cycle that started long before you ever met them. Fearful avoidants aren't bad people. They're wounded, they're scared, and unless they face those patterns and do the hard work to heal, the same loop will play on repeat, with you or the next person. and sex will remain both their sanctuary and their battlefield. They often create intense sexual chemistry quickly to feel a sense of control or bonding. It happens fast, faster than most people expect. You meet them, and almost instantly, there's a magnetic pull. The energy is electric. The attraction feels cosmic. It's not just physical. It feels emotional, spiritual, like destiny, but that intensity isn't always organic. Sometimes it's engineered, subconsciously or not. Because for fearful avoidants, creating deep sexual chemistry is a survival strategy. It's how they bond without exposing too much of their vulnerable inner world. It's how they establish closeness while bypassing emotional risk. Sex becomes the shortcut to connection. The faster they can get you emotionally invested, the safer they feel for a moment. It gives them the illusion of intimacy without the pressure of slow, steady, emotional unfolding. They don't want to wait. They want to feel something big, something overwhelming, something undeniable, because underneath their avoidance is a longing, an ache for closeness, security, and love, but those things scare them. So they use the heat of attraction, the rush of sexual tension, to create a kind of emotional gravity. They pull you in hard, they pull you in fast, because if they can get you attached, if they can become unforgettable to you, maybe they won't be left. Maybe you won't abandon them. It's not always conscious. It's not always manipulative. It's often a defense mechanism they've used for years, without even realizing it, and it works, because that level of sexual chemistry makes people overlook red flags. It makes people justify mixed signals. It makes people stay longer than they should. But for the fearful avoidant, this intensity is a shield. It lets them feel in control. It lets them manage their own fear of rejection. If you're addicted to the spark, you're less likely to ask about their inconsistencies. If you're chasing the next high, you're too distracted to notice the emotional unavailability. So sex becomes a tool. Not just for pleasure, but for power, for control, for validation. It becomes a performance of intimacy without the vulnerability it requires. And when you mistake that intensity for love, you become entangled. You think you're building something deep, but really you're trapped in a push-pull dynamic that never stabilizes. The chemistry is real, but it's not always healthy. It's not always love. It's often a smoke screen. A fast, burning flame used to hide the fear underneath. After intimacy, they may withdraw or become cold, causing confusion, and it happens just when you thought things were finally getting closer. The connection felt real. You opened up, you shared your body, you maybe even shared parts of your soul, and for a moment it felt like something was building, like you were finally moving forward together. But then, out of nowhere, everything shifts. The energy changes, they start pulling away, they stop texting as often. Their responses become short, distant, calculated. They're suddenly busy, or tired, or not in the mood to talk. And you're left wondering what just happened. You replay every conversation, you question the night you shared, you wonder if you said too much or not enough. You feel exposed, confused, even rejected, but the truth is, it's not about something you did wrong. It's about what closeness triggers in them, because for a fearful avoidant, intimacy is a double-edged sword. They want it, they crave it, but the moment it becomes real, it activates their deepest fears. Fears of being seen, fears of being abandoned, fears of being trapped or smothered. So even though they initiated closeness, even though they wanted that moment with you, the aftermath feels dangerous to them. Their nervous system goes into overdrive. Their brain starts creating distance to regain a sense of safety. So they shut down emotionally, they put up walls, they create space, not to hurt you, but to survive their own internal panic. But to you it feels deeply personal. It feels like betrayal. You go from being cherished to being ignored, from feeling desired to feeling disposable. It's a roller coaster that leaves you dizzy. Because it's hard to reconcile the version of them that held you the night before with the version that barely acknowledges you today, you start questioning your worth. You start wondering if they ever really cared. But this isn't about a lack of care. It's about a lack of emotional regulation. They don't know how to sit with the vulnerability that intimacy creates, so they retreat into coldness. They create emotional distance to neutralize the fear. And this cycle repeats over and over again, unless they confront their patterns, unless they learn to stay with the discomfort instead of running from it. Because love isn't just about connection, it's about consistency after the connection is made. And when someone disappears after you let them in, it's not a reflection of your value. It's a reflection of their fear. Their hot and cold behavior is rooted in fear of abandonment and engulfment. And when you don't understand that, it can drive you absolutely mad. 1 minute, they're all in. They're loving, attentive, flirtatious, maybe even deeply romantic. They open up. They make you feel wanted. They invite you into their world. But just when you start to feel safe, they switch, they pull away, they go silent, they act distant, irritated, or emotionally unavailable. It's confusing because it feels like whiplash. It makes you question everything you just experienced. But this pattern has a name. It's a nervous system stuck in survival mode. Fearful avoidants live in a constant tug-of war between two powerful fears, the fear of being abandoned and the fear of being engulfed. When things get too distant, they panic. They fear being left. They worry that no one will ever stay, that they'll always be alone. So they reach out, they pursue, they initiate closeness. But when things get too close, they also panic. They fear losing themselves. They feel overwhelmed, smothered, like they're being swallowed by someone else's needs or expectations. So they pull back. They protect themselves. They build emotional walls just as quickly as they tore them down. To the outside world, it looks like games. It looks manipulative, but on the inside, it's chaos. They're not trying to confuse you. They're trying to calm their own internal storm. This push and pull isn't calculated. It's reactive. It's a pattern formed in early relationships where love came with conditions, where closeness meant pain, where independence meant neglect. So now, as adults, they don't know how to feel safe in connection. When someone gets too close, their brain says, "You're losing control, you're losing yourself." And when someone pulls away, it screams, "You're being left, you're not enough." It's exhausting for both them and their partners. Because you're constantly stuck in a loop, trying to figure out which version of them will show up today. Will they be warm? Will they be cold? Will they lean in or shut you out? It becomes a cycle of walking on eggshells. But the root of it is fear. Fear of being hurt, fear of being consumed, fear of being abandoned, fear of disappearing inside a relationship. And until those fears are addressed, until they learn how to sit in the middle ground between closeness and autonomy, that hot and cold behavior will continue, because it's not about how much they care. It's about how unsafe care has felt in the past. They crave emotional connection, but also fear it deeply. That contradiction lives at the center of their emotional world. They want love. They want to be seen, known, held. They want someone who understands their heart, someone who makes them feel safe. But at the same time, the idea of actually being close terrifies them. It's not just a mild discomfort. It's a deep, unconscious fear wired into their nervous system. Because to them, emotional closeness has never felt safe. It has felt unpredictable, conditional, maybe even painful. So now, as adults, they reach for connection with one hand while pushing it away with the other. It creates a constant emotional tug-of war. They lean in, they express interest, they open up just enough to pull you closer. And then, suddenly, they back off, they shut down, they disappear into silence or sarcasm or distraction. It's not because they don't care. It's because care feels dangerous, being loved feels risky, letting someone in means losing control. It means being vulnerable to rejection, disappointment, or abandonment. So they build emotional armor. They tell themselves not to need anyone. They act self-sufficient, independent, guarded, but inside, they're aching for connection. They want it more than anything, but they don't know how to hold it. They fear that if someone gets too close, they'll see the parts they've tried to hide, the insecurity, the shame, the deep wounds they've never dared to name. So they run or they sabotage. They pick fights out of nowhere. They accuse you of things you didn't do, or they simply vanish when things start to feel real, because real is scary, real is unpredictable. And if they were never taught that love can be steady and safe, then it will always feel like a threat, even when it's genuine, even when it's kind, even when it's exactly what they say they want, and this fear can be overwhelming. It can confuse you because you feel their longing, you see the glimpses of depth, you know it's there, but every time you try to build something real, the fear takes over. They want the closeness, but they fear the cost. They want connection, but they brace for the fall, so they hover at the edge of intimacy, always reaching, but never fully stepping in. And it's not because they're broken. It's because connection feels like both the answer and the danger. The thing they most desire, and the thing they're most afraid to hold. So if you've been caught in the cycle, pulled in by their longing, pushed away by their fear, know this: you're not crazy, you're not too much, and you're not the problem. You're standing in front of someone who is battling a war inside themselves, between wanting love and fearing it. You cannot fix what they don't want to heal. You cannot love them out of their fear. But you can love yourself enough to recognize when connection turns into confusion, and when desire turns into damage. Real love doesn't feel like a guessing game. It feels like safety. It feels like clarity. And if someone makes you feel like you have to earn emotional scraps in the name of connection, it's not your job to stay and prove your worth. It's your job to walk where love feels like home, not a battlefield.